Hey everybody, it's Alan Brochstein coming to you from Houston, Texas this morning to talk about one of my favorite things on the planet, the cannabis market. And the cannabis market, which I'll get to more in depth in just a moment, was down for its second week in a row, but it's still up year to date, and it's up more than the S&P 500 still. We at New Cannabis Ventures have been warning about two things. One, the volumes are very low. And two, MSOS is having problems. So I want to start off today talking about the big news from last week. And the MSOS problem isn't making the news like it should, in my opinion. I've been talking about this problem for a while. Actually, I first shared it at 420 Investor, which I was running at Benzinga. No longer am I there. And that was written in late August. And I talked about the big problem. And the big problem has gotten bigger, actually. And that problem is that ETF is overly concentrated in the 5 largest MSOs. And if you want to fast forward, the price is much, much lower today than it was then. And it's gotten even more concentrated. When I wrote that original article, I don't even remember where it was. I think it was 70% or something. And I wrote about it on Seeking Alpha, and it was 75%. Now it's almost 81% in the top 5 names. Are these names better than all the other companies? In my opinion, no. Are they cheaper? They are cheaper than they were, but they're not cheaper than the tier 2 names, in my opinion. I'll throw one out there for you, Columbia Care, which one of the 2 tier 1 names, Cresco Labs, is trying to buy, is trading at 1/3 below the deal price, and it's supposed to close relatively soon. Now, will it close soon? Probably. Will it close at that deal ratio? Maybe not. So it might not be as good a deal as it seems, but if you could buy something 1/3 off within 2 months, close, it seems like a good deal, right? So I think that MSOS, which is down 7.7% year to date, it's being dragged down by 4 of the 5 largest. They're all down, but 4, I'm not going in any order except alphabetical. Curaleaf, GTI, Trulieve, and Verano are all down more than MSOS year to date, I believe. And the one that's not down as much, but it is down, is Cresco Labs. So I think this is a problem. Why? I've written about it a lot. I wrote about it at New Cannabis Ventures weekly newsletter and Seeking Alpha, and plus I've shared it with my subscribers at 420 Investor. I think that it's really bad investing to have all your bets in just a few names. Well, for the one hand, anybody with a brain can look at what their portfolio is and basically copy it with buying 4 or 5 stocks, which that's a bad business. But let's face it, MSOS is built for a different type of investor. And a lot of them aren't allowed to invest in either international stocks trading on the CSE or on OTC stocks. So it's kind of a workaround. And the market cap has fallen. It used to be over $1 billion. Now it's under 400 million. But this year, 2023, from the end of 2022 to now, that number of shares has fallen by 5.5% or so. And since December 16th, which is close to its peak, it's fallen by over 13%. The shares are declining. So what are they doing at MSOS? They're selling out a hydro farm, which they probably never should have owned. And they never should have sold when they sold it. They're selling out of IIPR now. They're selling out of GrowGen now. And in fact, they added a little bit to Cresco on Friday. This week they did reduce some of those large 5, but the relative weight in their ETF went up from about 80% to almost 81%. So they're compounding the problem. And so investors who don't read my piece and hold on to MSOS, instead of pursuing an alternative like another ETF that I suggested might do better, and it has, or to pick other stocks, or which are MSOs, or more importantly, to look at ancillary stocks like Hydrofarm, like MAPS, that are up year to date. They're missing out. And the real story here is that if MSOS continues to get redemptions, they're ultimately going to have to sell Curaleaf, GTI, their two largest holdings. GTI is the largest. And if you think about that, the market cap of GTI is a little bit less than Curaleaf. So it's about 5% of GTI. So it's not the end of the world, but there are very few buyers of cannabis stocks right now, which I've been warning about. The volumes are extremely low. So we've had a rally, which I'll talk to you about now in a moment, actually. But the volumes are very light. So to me, who's very bullish on the cannabis industry for the long haul, and in my model portfolios, which I'll talk about shortly, I'm pretty bullish too, although I've raised some cash. But I'm very worried about what the redemptions might do to the largest MSOs, as well as other stocks. Because think about it. If MSOS is dumping Curaleaf, for example, then somebody may dump something else to buy Curaleaf, and that could be a problem. So I did want to share, I've been writing a lot at Seeking Alpha. I started there in recently, 2007, is that recently? And in 2014, I kind of quit writing regular articles there as the cannabis industry got really busy, and I had a subscription service at Benzinga where I no longer maintain it. And but recently I started writing again at Seeking Alpha, and this week I shared a piece that I think is great. Canopy growth went up this week, but I wrote, Canopy growth is not a good stock for cannabis investors. And I explained kind of the problem that I think Canopy growth is going to have, and I shared a target that's now down 50%. This target is a year from now, and it's more than 50% below the current price. And I think it's right, by the way. So this week, I have a focus list of 31 names, and I had news on 8. And I'll share it all. Ascend was one of the few positive stories out there, in my opinion. They announced the pending acquisition of 4 medical dispensaries in Maryland for $19 million in stock and cash. And this is a new state for them. And Maryland's medical has been tough. It's been in decline recently, but the state's about to go adult use, and it should be good. AIR mutually agreed with Dispensary 33 in Chicago not to buy 2 dispensaries for $55 million, mainly in stock. That was going to be a lot of shares, and they both walked away from it, no penalties or anything. And I'll just leave it at that. I'm smiling. I'm not going to say anything bad about it. I think it was good. Cresco opened their 22nd dispensary in Florida. That's pretty good that they've been bulking up since doing that deal. They bought into the state, I think, early 2021. Early 2022, I mean. Curaleaf, that was the big news for the week for the cannabis operators. They announced that they're basically going to exit California, Colorado, and Washington. Is that right? Washington? California, Colorado, and Oregon. I made a mistake. I'll fix that. So if you think about it, they've been really bulking up in those states. They bought Select in 2021, which was I think Oregon, and they took them to California, but a brand. And then they bought in Colorado an outdoor grower, and now they're basically shutting out of those 3 states. And those 3 states are big if you think about it in cannabis consumption. And it's kind of confusing to the world. And they also announced they're going to consolidate their facilities in Massachusetts. Then they opened up a new Florida dispensary, and they also announced that the Grassroots brand is available in New Jersey. Finally, the company began adult use sales at a dispensary in Stamford, Connecticut. So all in all, kind of a mixed picture from Curaleaf, the largest market cap MSO and highest in revenue right now. Organogram, which I'll just share with you, it's my largest position in my model portfolio, beat the Global Cannabis Stock Index, said that they're being warned by the NASDAQ about their price being below $1. They have until July 24th to close it 10 straight days above $1, or they'll face delisting. And so this augurs for a reverse split, which I don't think is the end of the world. And I'll just say their business is growing. They're doing well. They have a lot of cash, no debt, and a big investment from BAT. It all looks good to me, except for this bad news. The stock, Canadian cannabis stocks rallied this week, but it was down. Spring Big announced a new IT partner. Trulieve opened another Florida dispensary, where they have a few, right? They're the leader there. And then this was the big news for me of the week. Village Farms, which I'm not a huge fan of everything they do, and I wish that they didn't do produce still, but I like their operations in Canada. I'm not fond of what they're doing in CBD or their international operations yet. Maybe it'll work. But to me, the story is a good Canadian LP at a great price. And I had a pretty big position going into the year in my model portfolio, but I cut it basically in half. And so I was basically market weight, which when it plunged, it didn't really hurt me per se, because I was only market weight relative to the index. But I more than doubled it this week in my model portfolio. They did 18.35 million shares at with 165 warrants, the same number, at an offering of $1.35, 1 penny above where they ended 2022, and certainly above their old multi-year low. But the stock plunged after they did that in the pre-market. And when it opened, it actually traded a little bit in the pre-market below 90 cents. It never traded below 90 cents in the real market. And it was down there that I added to it in my model portfolio. I actually made, I think, 2 or maybe 3 different purchases at different prices. And the first one was at 94.5 cents, I think. And then I bought one lower, and I think I even paid higher than that for the third batch. Okay, so enough of that. Let's talk now about the market. And again, I said that it was down this week. We fell 1.8% to 1039, leaving it up 7% year to date. And that the S&P 500 is up no, I don't have it written there. The S&P 500 is up about 6%, I think, year to date. So we are doing better. If you talk to the people invested in the largest MSOs, they're all down a lot. They view the market as doing horribly. And I don't think that's the case. I think certain stocks are doing pretty poorly, including Village Farms. But anyway, so that's that. let me talk about the model portfolios now. I have two, and beat the global cannabis stock index, fell 1.5%, so did better than the market, which was down 1.8% this week. And it's up a stunning 17.4% year to date. Last year, it was down about as much as the market, just horrible. Especially for me, I like to beat the market. And I could explain exactly what happened, but I'm not going to. It's just being human, and I was almost killed last year. I was in the hospital for 2 months. That didn't help, but I'm not going to blame that. It was just me making a mistake about how low the market could go and how weak ancillary names could be. But anyway, it's up year to date by 17.4% compared to the index being up just 7%. And then I run a new model portfolio called Beat the American Cannabis Operator Index, and it had a rough week, as did the index. It was down 4.9%, while the index fell 4.2%. That was the second down week in a row, and it leaves it up 2.5% year to date. And I just told you, all the big MSOs are down, but I own only one of the top. No, that's not true. I own a little bit of GTI. I'm underweight. I own, and I added to Trulieve, and I have owned a lot and still own a lot of Verano. I don't own any Cresco right now. I did. I sold it, and I don't own Curaleaf. And so the index is up 2.7% year to date, and that index includes a lot of names that are up a ton, and like Planet 13 comes to mind. And so anyway, I do compare myself to MSOS, which has no index, but I think the American Cannabis Operator Index makes sense, and that has 2 CBD companies in it right now. It's updated monthly, and I can tell you after having done this last night, it's going to have no CBD companies in it in February. So it really is a good index. MSOS is down 7.7% year to date. I'm killing it. So the last thing I want to cover is the calendar. And this week we have a lot of people really like this stock. Don't include me on that. High Tide reports its Q4 and hosts a call on Tuesday morning. And then Wednesday, one of the most important companies, but it's not fully devoted to the cannabis industry, but one of the most important companies is Scott's Miracle-Gro, and they'll report their Q1. I have that written down wrong too. It's not their Q4. I will change that. So that's really it. And I have in this summary a link to the article that I wrote and shared publicly, and I'll link to it again. And that was the guide of all this. And I also have links to my articles at Seeking Alpha. And have a good week. Take care.